Bumblebee Transforming a franchise. Katie Burt, I see what you did there. How's it going, everybody? This is Phil. Look, man, my interest in the Transformer franchise has been renewed with the upcoming movie Bumblebee. I love the nods that they're given to G1. I grew up on G1. I did like the Michael Bay movies. Definitely liked number one. And, it was kind of a downhill trend from there, but I've seen them all, and I think multiple times outside of the third one. And they, look, they're big and they're loud, and they're kind of goofy and silly, and they're all over the place. But each movie gives you something that's kind of cool. I mean, as far as action is concerned, and in the movies, they did deliver a lot of action, but I mean, it was at the expense of a little bit of restraint. They just kind of threw everything at the screen, and after a certain point, it just becomes like background noise. You can't even, like, if you're on the farm and all you smell all day long is horse shit. By the end of the day, you can't even smell it anymore. I mean, that's kind of what ended up happening with these movies. You just became numb to what the experience was. And seeing the new trailer really filled me with a lot more hope that the franchise can kind of get back to a place where, people can see that there's a lot of heart here, and that there's a mythology that you could really build off of. I mean, the Transformers could be a huge, sweeping sci-fi epic, and could be up there with the likes of, The Matrix and Star Wars, and well, I mean, The Matrix probably isn't as highly regarded anymore after those sequels closed out that trilogy, but, if they were to bring that back, that franchise, if it's done right, that could be a huge sci-fi franchise once again. And look, Star Wars isn't what it used to be either, unfortunately. But again, that's another franchise that could always find its way back. And what's happened here, at least for me, is that I see a Bumblebee movie, a Transformers movie, that may have found its way back into the good graces of the fan base. And it's done it by paying respect to the original mythology and the Generation 1 comics and television show design aesthetic. And look, it seems like they've also instilled a sense of wonder. I mean, the show came out in the 80s, and this movie takes place in the 80s. And a lot of us grew up on these 80s movies, from the late 70s up until the 80s and early 90s, and when Spielberg reigned supreme at the box office, and George Lucas and Robert Zemeckis, all of these talented directors that gave us Star Wars and E.T. and Back to the Future, these franchises that we hang our hats on as far as our collective childhoods are concerned. And they all had heart, and they all were fantastic journeys and fairy tales, and these stories that, as a young child, they launched an industry. A lot of people are in the movie industry today because of those movies. And a lot of us that didn't go into that line of work, we hold on to those experiences, those film experiences, very dearly, and we kind of wish that there were more movies like that now. As we get older and we have children, we wish that we had those experiences for our children, and we could always show them the movies that we had, and they're timeless classics at this point. But it would be nice to have new movies that came out that somehow were able to capture that same spirit And J.J. Abrams has tried it with movies like Super 8. And, if something always seems off the mark, I would say that, the gentleman who directed Stranger Things have come closest to approximating that 80s feel. It's set in the 80s, and, it's kind of a cross between like the Goonies and a Stephen King movie, with the content and the way that it deals with everything and what it goes aesthetically for. So, here we are with this movie now, and this could be a great nostalgia trip, and it looks like it's got a lot of heart to it, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. So this article is by the very witty, the very punny Katie Burt, as she's proven that here in her her title, and it goes on to say that the Bumblebee screenwriter Christina Hodson on the Transformers franchise's new beginning, and let's see what her take is on it. So here we have our protagonists in the new movie. This is Charlie, and here is classic Bumblebee. I mean, this is so awesome. I really can't wait to watch this movie. So let's go and see what we have to say with the author, or the writer of this movie. When Bumblebee comes out this December, it will mark many firsts for the Transformers franchise. It will be the first Transformers film not to be directed by Michael Bay, Kubo, and the Two Strings director Travis Knight will be behind the camera. It will be the franchise's first prequel, and it will be the first film in a series to be written by a woman. Michael Bay stepping down from the director's role. That's a change of pace is a nice thing. After 5 films, you gave it your all. Let's take this thing in a different direction. Travis Knight, he's got his base in animation. He's done some directing. He seems to get the content, which is great. He has a respect for it. Which, look, Michael Bay in the beginning, he said the original designs looked effing stupid. So, I mean, there wasn't as much reverence there as there appears to be for at least Travis Knight. I haven't read up on him or seen interviews with him about this movie, but it would appear that what we've seen on screen indicates that he does have a lot more reverence for the source material. First prequel, no problem with that. And the first film in the series to be written by a woman. Fine. You know what? A unique perspective is always welcome, so long as they still hit the right notes. And so far, that's what they seem to be doing. I think it's a bit of a myth that action is for boys. Bumblebee screenwriter Christina Hodson tells Den of Geek, as a half-Asian Brit growing up watching action movies, I'm half Italian and then German and Polish, but she's got me beat here. Hodson rarely saw main characters who looked like her in a genre sea of white, male protagonists in their 30s and 40s. And that's true. If you go back to the 80s, there's a lot of that going on. I always wanted to see me be the hero, Hodson says. I wanted to see me kick ass. I mean, not literally. I had no desire to be an actor, but I wanted to have those role models and those heroes. I think what's really fun is that Bumblebee is a big, cool, fun action movie the boys are going to love, but girls love action too. And this is a chance for girls to see themselves in the movie, which I think is a really special and important thing. Now look, I don't have an issue with that. None whatsoever. You look at Star Wars, what they've done, and they've kind of jammed a lot of that down, the fans' throats in that movie. There's a way to do it. And when you create these characters, all right, a lot of people, I have friends that are females that love Star Wars, and Luke Skywalker for a lot of them is a favorite. And it doesn't matter that he was a male. It just matters that the character was accessible, that the character had struggle, that the character was relatable, that he had emotion, that you felt for him, and that his journey was something that you could imagine yourself in his shoes going through. That's what's most important, all right? And when you do that, everything else falls into place. So with this protagonist, Charlie, I don't pick up so far on any of this agenda-driven stuff that we've seen in other franchises. It just seems like a really good story so far that is going to take us in an interesting direction with this franchise. So, and it's a little bit smaller in scale, and again, it looks like it has a lot more heart, which is something we just have not really seen in these Transformers movies. And Sam was okay, but as he goes on, Sam Witwicky, he becomes just really just annoying, and you almost root against him. He becomes like a real dick as the movies go on, and he's just outright unlikable, for me at least. At a certain point, I really didn't care about him, and I was glad when he left the franchise. So let's move over here. Bumblebee is set in 1987. 20 years before the events of the first Transformers film. It stars True Grit's Haley Steinfeld as Charlie Watson, a teen girl living in a small California beach town who finds Bumblebee in the local junkyard. Okay. And it says, Charlie really is our entry point into the movie, and that's what any good protagonist should be. She doesn't know anything about Transformers, says Hodson, calling Bumblebee custom-made for people who are new to the franchise. Not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I think we're all kind of burnt out on superhero origin stories. We all know who they are. We all know what they do. We know what their powers are for the most part. We don't need a retelling of Batman. We don't need a retelling of Spider-Man. But with this movie, it feels like a soft reboot. So, we understand that it's familiar territory, but it feels different enough to whereas I don't mind sitting through a little bit of the origin of Bumblebee and how he got to Earth and how he came to be leading up to the Michael Bay movies. So I'm okay with that. But of course, if you're a fan, you'll get wonderful little Easter eggs that you'll get to enjoy that other people won't. So the prequel film offers a chance to get to see the Bumblebee character, who Hodson admits has always been her favorite, in a new light. This is really an origin story for Bumblebee, she says, but the character traits are all the same. They're all here. His loyalty, his kindness, he's fun-loving, and really, he's been the one who's always had that special bond with humans, whether it's Sam or Spike or someone else. That was something that I wanted to lean into a bit and see where and how that began. So, there he is. Let's see here. So like the first Transformers film, which featured a friendship between Bumblebee and Sam as its emotional core, Bumblebee is all about the friendship between an Autobot and a human. I had a really clear sense in my mind of who Charlie was as a person and what they would mean to each other, she says. That was always the North Star that guided everything. I think it will absolutely make a good Christmas movie, she says. It's a movie that everyone in the family can enjoy because it's got that wonder and that joy. It's a little bit sweet, it's a little bit sad, but it's also just fun and big, and there's lots of great action. It's a good Christmas outing. And yeah, why not? I mean, these movies, they should kind of run the spectrum. I think to just treat them as cannon fodder, these characters. That was kind of a mistake with the original run of these films. They just made the characters, just disposable or there for gags or whatever the case may be. I mean, let's face it, at the end of the day, people are in a movie theater, they want to see Transformers. These movies, they're called the Transformers, they're not called the Humans. So, that's what sells the tickets. These robots, these Transformers, the things that make them unique and interesting is that they do have emotion. They have human traits that they can be relatable. So that's something that really needs to be driven home, and that's where the heart comes into play when you make a movie like that. Now, that being said, the character Charlie, she seems like a great access point for kids. I mean, little girls are probably going to want to be her. Little boys are probably going to have a crush on her, and I don't think the audiences are, from what I've seen in the trailer, are going to find her to be some kind of a cringeworthy character that delivers this awful dialogue. I mean, only time will tell. But so far, she just seems like an innocent girl who gets caught up in this, this great space epic. And look, little girls are going to love Bumblebee. They're going to think he's cute, and little boys are going to think that he's cool as hell. So this movie, for what it's going to do to this franchise, not to mention the old-time fans. I mean, people are just over the moon about these classic designs coming back and these classic color schemes. Now, I've grown to learn, unfortunately, that in my trailer review, what I thought was Starscream is in fact actually Blitzwing, but he does have kind of the markings and color scheme of Starscream. So, there's a little bit of that. And the Transformer franchise has always been notorious for kind of taking names and applying them to other robots, even faction names. I mean, the Dinobots became Dinobot. So I mean, this is something that's kind of always gone on, and it's not necessarily anything that's exclusive to the fumbling and bumbling of Bumble, no, no pun intended, like Katie Burt, but the bumbling of this franchise, to a lesser extent, the things that have gone on with renaming characters. Anyway, look, I think we're in a good place. I think, and if they could just disregard, this doesn't necessarily have to lead into the Michael Bay movies per se. I mean, it could go off in its other direction. They could easily say that this is an alternate timeline, and this has been a soft reboot. There are design cues from the Michael Bay movies, but we're going to take this in a different direction because this has been so wildly popular and successful that it warrants kind of its own section of the movie universe. It's not something that's unheard of. There's been movies that are coming out or are, rumored to be coming out, which would disregard prior sequels to original movies from when the franchise first started, such as Terminator and Alien and things of that nature. So for a movie to come out now and be kind of a soft reboot that's still in the same universe, it acknowledges it but goes in a different direction, that wouldn't be such a bad course to take. And look, who knows? I mean, we could be looking at several sequels to this movie set in and around the 80s, maybe going into the early 90s, and then we never get to that just crazy high octane just insanity of the, of the Michael Bay movies, which again were not without merit, but for the most part nobody ever regarded them as anything necessarily special. And if you love them, look, that's fine too. More power to you. And like I said, I didn't absolutely hate them, but I thought that this franchise could have been and deserved to be a lot more than what it ended up being when it was all said and done. And for a lot of people, it became a joke. Look, as a big fan, that's what I don't want to see it be that anymore. I want to see it be taken. Look, it's silly, the premise and everything like that, but I want to see it be taken serious as far as this is a good movie. It's a fun movie. It's good science fiction. And it's likable. It doesn't cause people to have seizures and run out of the theater and, and vomit in the nearest garbage can. So anyway, guys, that's all I got on this. Tell me what you think, man. And, are you looking forward to, look, are you glad Sam is gone? And it doesn't really matter to you that the protagonist is a female. To me, right now, this doesn't matter at all. It never mattered to me in the new Star Wars movies up until, there seemed to be another agenda sneaking into it. So look, if this movie just stays on the straight and narrow and it tells a story and doesn't concern itself with identity politics and, any kind of forced agendas or ideological, the subtext that goes on, I don't have an issue with any of this. I like the fact that there's a female writer on it. I like the fact that there's a fresh perspective. I think the character of Charlie is going to be, a great access point for people of all ages, and she's not coming across as cringeworthy to me at all. And I think it's going to play nicely with Bumblebee. I think that the relationship that they're going to have on screen is going to be really sweet and heartfelt. So you know what? I don't have a problem with that at all. And that was, Spielberg was accused of being very schmaltzy with his movies, but look, E.T. is it's a very sweet movie, and it's a timeless classic. So could you imagine we get a Transformer movie that ends up being a timeless classic? It's like the gates of hell will come flying open. So anyway, let me know what you think, guys. If you like this video, feel free to like it and make a comment down below. If this is your first time here, please consider subscribing to the channel. I do talk a lot about Star Wars, but again, my interest in Transformers is to be reinvigorated. So I'll be doing some of these articles when they pop up from time to time. I'll keep my eye out on them, anything else that kind of catches my fancy, as far as Marvel and DC or anything like that. We're based in Star Wars, but we could always move out into other directions. Anyway, thank you for watching. It's always appreciated, guys. And as always, be happy, be safe, be healthy. Have a great night. Bye-bye.